Welcome, everybody, to a crossover episode of the Junkyard Dawgcast, Auburn Undercover, Go 24/7. I'm your host, Jordan Hill. We have got quite a crew with us on this afternoon, getting ready to talk a little bit about all the different changes going on in college football. We are launching what we are calling College Football IQ. It's going to be a game show with different contestants from our sites talking about all the different changes in college football and seeing just how much we know and probably more importantly what we don't know as we get ready for the 2024 season. I want to make sure and introduce everybody. We've got Dogs 24/7's Benjamin Wolk, Auburn Undercover's Nathan King, and Go 24/7's Bryce Koon. We are going to go through and play this game, but first I want to give a chance to for each of our contestants to talk a little bit about what is going to be the subject of this first edition of College Football IQ, which is the transfer portal. We've got a lot of questions loaded up about the different moves that teams across the country made in the transfer portal, where some of the star players who have switched schools, where they're going to be playing in 2024. We're going to see if we have been able to keep up with everything and have a good feel for what we're going to see on the field this fall. I'm going to start with you, Nathan. Tell us just a little bit about what Auburn has done in the portal. Do you feel like they answered a bunch of needs? How did the portal work out for the Tigers this offseason?
Yeah, the pre-spring portal for them was kind of a touch-all, fill depth at various positions. Really didn't get a superstar type player in that first portal window. Quarterback was the big, I mean, it always is for most teams. It was the focus. They kicked the tires on Cam Ward. Caden Salter was somebody they were very interested in. I think a couple other quarterbacks as well. But they ended up riding it out with Peyton Thorne. That ended up being the case in the post-spring portal as well. So Hugh Freeze has kind of gone back and forth on, Peyton's our guy. We're behind him 100%. Then after the bowl game, they were like, it's wide open, and we're going to try to upgrade the position. Now we're right back to square one. But I do think Thorne has the potential to be a lot better in this offense. But the post-spring window, or I guess spring window, post-spring practice, was a little bit more hyped for them. They had a pretty small transfer class after the end of spring practice, but it was really good job of addressing needs everywhere. 3 defensive linemen, all of whom could play pretty significant roles, including Isaiah Rakes, who's a massive nose tackle from USC, actually from Texas A&M. Spent like 3 months at USC and then transferred to Auburn. Philip Bleedy is a starting defensive line type guy from Indiana. Then Kayron Crawford comes over from Arkansas State. He's going to be a pass rusher. But the splashy one was Keandre Lambert-Smith, somebody that tons of schools were after. I believe 24/7 had him as the number 2 receiver in the portal. 1,700 career receiving yards, 11 touchdowns. That's the kind of guy that they thought, okay, if a guy like that pops up in the portal, they're going to pursue pretty heavily because you have so much young talent right now. At receiver, you kind of got some like G5 receivers transfers that you think are pretty good, but if you could get a Power 5 contributor in there and a guy who's started for multiple years, they felt like that could be a good upgrade. So I would give Auburn 2 thumbs up for this transfer cycle. There was no big splashy quarterback, but if you're going to choose to go that route, if you're going to end up in that route for a variety of reasons. I think they've done the best job they could, at every other position.
Staying in what used to be the SEC West, Bryce, tell us about LSU, what they've done in the portal, and if you think they answered some big needs this offseason.
Yeah, no, I mean, we could sit here for about 20, 25 minutes and talk about what LSU has not been able to do in the transfer portal. And Nathan mentioned a couple names. The biggest one was Philip Bleedy, who he was kind of a contender for both Auburn and LSU, ends up choosing Auburn. LSU kind of swung and missed on several defensive line targets, both in that winter portal and then kind of this post-spring practice portal as well. So defensive line, yeah, they added 2 names, Gio Paez from Wisconsin, a sixth-year guy now, and then JVR Suggs out of the Division II ranks, but still a lot left to be desired there. That's kind of the big question mark, heading into the summer and then obviously into fall camp about how they're going to shore up a defense that was not very good. I mean, that's the best way you could put it last year. It held this team back from a lot of the goals and aspirations that the number 1 offense in the country statistically that they had, that they thought they could accomplish. So you kind of go down the list. One of the more flashier names they added was C.J. Daniels, one of the top receivers in the FBS last year out of Liberty, was a really good player. Can he make the jump and can he make it seamlessly into the not only just the new Power Four, but in the SEC. I mean, obviously was very good at Liberty. Liberty had a great season last year, but Daniel's going to be asked to kind of step in and fill, along with some other guys, Xavion Thomas out of Mississippi State. The holes left by 2 first-round draft picks, Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors, who were very, very good and a part of that award-winning offense last year. And then LSU kind of focused continuing to build depth on the back end of the defense. They struggled a lot there last year, injuries, just some maybe missed evaluations and expectations of what they had. So they went and, kind of said, hey, we're going to go, and I used this phrase on our podcast the other day, kind of what the, I want to say old Warriors, but that makes me feel old. The old Golden State Warriors said strength in numbers. They're just going to have so many names back there that they're going to see what works out. So a guy like Jair Brown from Ohio State, a Louisiana native, Austin Osbury from Auburn, who transfers kind of back home to Baton Rouge. Jordan Gilbert, who was a part of, a solid Texas A&M defense at the safety position, is another name to watch. And then kind of the final one, quarterback, everyone would perceive, there's a massive question mark. You just lost a guy who was selected number 2 overall in the NFL draft. Well, they feel like they have a guy, and Jordan, I know you and Benjamin both have kind of been able to see him up close in that SEC title game 2 years ago now. Garrett Nussmeier is going to take the reins, but they needed some more experience behind him. They take another guy who's a Georgia native, was in the SEC at Vanderbilt and played pretty well, all things considered, A.J. Swan, to kind of give them some SEC experience behind Nussmeier. So, Nathan, was it kind of, 2 thumbs up? I'm going to go 1 half thumbs up with what I feel like LSU did. I feel like they made some additions, but defensive line kind of scares me as they roll into the summer and fall camp.
Last but not least, Ben, what do you make of what Georgia has done this offseason, what they addressed, and if you feel like there are any needs out of what they've done in the transfer portal?
Well, if we're being honest, Jordan, I should probably be asking you that question if we wanted people to have the most educated response to that. But I would say the postseason pre-spring portal really went sort of as expected. It gave a little, it took a little, losing, out on the portal, Georgia lost. I would say the main key pieces would be Brock Vandagriff that forced Georgia to, look at quarterback in the portal after spring. Jamon Dumas-Johnson, they both end up at Kentucky. Obviously, losing A.J. Harris is a big former 5-star loss up to Penn State as well. So you lose a little bit out of the portal, but I think for the most part, Georgia gained more than it lost. I mean, it went and found skill position players in Trevor Etienne from Florida. You got Colby Young from Miami. I think the receiver position with Colby Young, Michael Jackson, and London Humphreys is probably where Georgia emphasized the portal more than it didn't. I think that the big storyline really at this point, and conveniently today on May 21st as we talk, is what happened post-spring. And Kirby Smart mentioned all spring long he needed to add a 4th quarterback. And I think that there were a lot of reasons for that. 1, losing Vandagriff to Kentucky. 2, Dylan Raiola flipping late to Nebraska. And then, 3, Ryan Puglisi was not fully healthy throughout the spring as well. So I think the emphasis on getting that 4th quarterback was big, and Jaden Rashada ended up being that choice. I think that surprised a lot of people just because of the name recognition and his association with Florida coming out of high school. Today, obviously, there was a lawsuit news story that got dropped about him, filing a lawsuit against Billy Napier and the director of NIL at the University of Florida as well. So timely podcast for us to be here talking a little bit about transfer portal and Georgia taking what was probably the most notable addition for them this cycle in Jaden Rashada.
So I'm going to lay the groundwork a little bit of this game that we're going to play again. We're calling it College Football IQ. There are going to be different categories, different episodes that we do. This is the transfer portal episode. We've got 4 categories. There's going to be 4 questions, and each of our contestants, the 3 lovely gentlemen that are hanging out with me on this episode, are going to have a chance to buzz in our private chat. We've got the 4 different categories, which I will show you guys before we start the game. They get tougher and tougher as we go, and the money amounts that we're going to have to bill someone at 24/7, send something up to Nashville to make us some money on this. But they will be going up as we go. If you answer incorrectly, you're going to lose that amount. I'm going to be tallying the totals here. So if you hear me go silent for a few minutes, that means I've probably taken my shoes off and trying to count up what we're looking at. But 4 questions per category, and then a bonus question. And each of these bonus questions, all three will get to answer. I'll have you guys either write it down if you got a piece of paper, or if you want to text me just so no one else sees your answers. And there will be multiple answers to each of the bonus questions, which allows you guys to bank up a little bit and to see how this plays out. And then we're also at the very end going to do a Final Jeopardy style ending where I'm going to give you guys a category beforehand. You guys will give me a total that you're willing to put up. I will give you the scores before we get to that round. And then we'll get the final question and see who winds up winning this thing. Any questions from our contestants before we get a chance to look at the board?
I feel like we're about to get exposed.
I feel like I'm about to get wiped.
Yeah, my only question is why'd you do this to us? But yeah.
I will say for everybody listening that we're all going to have a turn at this, that between Bryce, Nathan, and I, we're each going to host one, and then we're going to compete on the other two. So if I get out of this one looking clean, just know that it's coming. I'm going to get what's coming to me.
The worse I finish, the harder I will make the questions on you.
Yes, that's why we made you go first.
Nathan's going to ask about FCS head coaching changes and just totally kill us.
The problem is you would know that stuff, so I can't even do that. I don't know what I'll have to do.
All right, we're going to look through the categories real quick. We are going to start with instant impact. Now, this is going to be the first category we play. We're not going to bounce around the board just for my own sanity. We're just going to slide through these one category at a time. But these are going to be a lot of the big names that you guys should be familiar with, and we'll get a chance to see what you guys can remember and if you guys are up to speed on all the different moves. Second category, moving on up. So this is going to be a group of 5 or an FCS player who is moving up a level. These are going to be some of the guys. Nathan looks like he's very worried about what's coming. I tried to make these easy, and I will say this too. As we go through these categories, much like in the Jeopardy style, I've tried to work in some hints in the question. So I've tried to be friendly to you guys. You can tell me after the fact if I made it too hard, but I did try to show a little bit of mercy with how these look. All right. And the next category, another fresh start. Now, this is going to be someone who has transferred multiple times. This is going to be someone who's bounced around a little bit in the portal era. We will see where those guys are now. And I think in a couple of cases, try to figure out where they just came from. And then the last category is big fish, smaller pond. So we talked about guys moving up. We're going to talk about a few guys who are moving down, guys who have either moved from the Power 5 down to the Group of 5. I do believe that's going to be the majority of those guys, guys that are going to get a fresh start. Maybe try to play a little bit more in a new location and take advantage of some of the competition they're getting ready to play. All right. Any questions, fellas, before we get this thing rolling?
We're
all right.
too late into this.
I think we're good.
Y'all are committed. All right, so I will mute everybody's mics as I read this first question. And if you're watching this or if you're listening to this, the guys are going to respond in our private chat, and whoever's name comes up first, they're going to get to answer the question. So let's get this thing rolling with the very first question, which is worth $100. An Alabama safety who left Tuscaloosa in January is the top-rated transfer on the 24/7 Sports board. What is his name? And Nathan buzzed in first. Nathan, let's see what you got.
Sorry, I thought you were going to unmute me. Caleb Downs might be the only one that I get this entire time. So
Caleb Downs is correct, and for whatever reason, Nathan, it would not let me unmute you. So if I've muted you guys, I will just ask you guys to unmute because It did not let me do that. All right, so Nathan's on the board. All right, everybody ready for the next question? Former Duke starter Riley Leonard was one of the marquee quarterbacks to enter the portal. Which school did he choose? And it looks like Bryce was the first one to buzz in there. Bryce, what do you got?
Obviously, Riley Leonard, ACC guy, staying in a pseudo ACC team, I guess we could call it. I'm going Notre Dame.
That is correct. All right, we got Bryce and Nathan both on the board there. Riley Leonard going to Notre Dame. Going on to the next question. KJ Jefferson opted to leave Arkansas after 5 seasons. Which Big 12 school landed him? And it looks like it is Nathan that buzzed in first. Nathan, where is KJ Jefferson now?
Yeah, we like the way he runs the ball.
Flying around making plays. That would be UCF. And I just wanted to say that, pointing out that UCF is a Big 12 school. I know they played there last year, but still didn't really feel right to me.
It
but
feels
that's-
weird. Yeah, it'll take a while.
All right. Going on to the next question. Former Colorado cornerback Cormani McClain recently announced his transfer decision. Where is Cormani going? And it looks like our guy Ben Wolk has buzzed in. Ben, where is Cormani McClain now?
University of Florida.
Correct. All right.
As a walk-on, as they want to make very clear, by the way.
Absolutely. All right, so we have finished this category, and that means we're going into the bonus round. And as I explained a few minutes ago, guys, these will have multiple correct answers. If you guys either want to text me or write it down on a piece of paper, just so not everybody gets to copy each other on this, and I will give you probably 20 seconds or so to answer this question. I'm going to pull it up in 1 second, make sure I have a timer handy. The bonus question is, give me the top 3 transfer additions for the team you covered. This is going to be based off the 24/7 Sports rankings, and they do not have to be in order. So just give me the top 3 of players that your team added during the entire transfer portal, the 2 windows that we just have gone through in the winter and the spring. All right, looks like each of our 3 contestants have put in their answers, so I will go over them really quickly. Ben for Georgia has said Trevor Etienne, Colby Young, and London Humphreys, and he is correct. So that is for each of those, that is 50 points apiece, so that's 150 points he has just added. He is up to 250 after the first round. Nathan has got Keandre Lambert-Smith, Philip Blighty, and Kyron Crawford, and we are looking at the board.
And there's no way that's right, I can promise you.
Let's see. You have gotten 2 of the 3. Kyron Crawford was not one of the top rated, but your first 2 answers were. So that's worth 100 points apiece.
Who was the third?
So there was actually a tie. So you had Keandre Lambert-Smith, Rico Walker was next. Then you had Percy Lewis, Robert Lewis, Antonio Kite, and Philip Blighty, according to the board.
Interesting.
Nathan is up to $300, and we're going to look at Bryce now. Bryce said CJ Daniels, Jordan Gilbert, and Xavion Thomas. And let's see here. That is all 3. So he gets 150 extra points. And so after round 1, we have Nathan is in the lead with $300. And then you've got Bryce and Ben right behind him with $250 apiece. Good work, gentlemen. And let's before we move on to the next category, I want to talk about the quarterback moves that we saw. We talked a little bit about Riley Leonard. We talked a little bit about KJ Jefferson. I'm going to start with you, Bryce. Were you surprised at all? I'd say more so in that spring period that we didn't see a lot of quarterback movement, that it was pretty standard as far as not seeing a ton of guys leave and guys getting ready for the upcoming season.
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of people had kind of hyped up that post-spring portal. Hey, there's going to be some big dominoes. There's going to be some big names, that maybe they find out that they're not the guy for the job. Or we can talk about it publicly. Maybe there's an NIL offer where a school really needs a quarterback and they know what they can jump into. So I think a little bit, it's kind of interesting to see how this whole post-spring practice portal is going to continue to develop over the years, because in a weird way, and I'll probably knock on wood saying this, I feel like we have at least an understanding of what the winter portal is going to be in terms of NIL values, NIL opportunities, and then just the freedom of movement. The post spring, I think, and we're going to figure this out as this trivia game goes on, no one really understands what the post-spring portal is about. And these NIL valuations are kind of all over the place. So I would say I'm surprised. It maybe feels like that the market wasn't developing quite as much as maybe people thought it was. I mean, I don't want to go too much into it. Kind of felt like Ohio State was a school that at least one guy off that roster might, try to enter the portal. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It feels like that could happen this year, and then next year, who knows? The thing could go completely ballistic as soon as spring games end.
Nathan, what about you? Any thoughts on just really more so the lack of movement, as Bryce was just talking about with quarterbacks during the post spring window?
Yeah, I feel like maybe we could reach a point within the next couple years. I think I don't know the data. We may have already seen it over the past 3 or 4 seasons. Maybe of guys realizing that leaving after the spring just puts such a shackle on you. I feel like maybe at quarterback more so than anywhere else. You saw it at Auburn last season. Like Peyton Thorne was super experienced and had 2 years as a starter at a Big Ten program. But when you have to come learn that offense in August and you play your first game in 27 days, like it's difficult. I think it's hard to overstate the value of spring practice, and it's not just about quarterback. Obviously, you want your early enrollees in and things like that. I mean, the NIL part of it, like Bryce said, hopefully get to a point within the next couple years where we have a better understanding of, hey, because I think you've got the big spenders right now, and quarterback falls into that category. But I think a lot of guys also maybe think that they're worth a little bit more. And you have other programs that say, look, we're not going to spend $800,000 on a quarterback. We're just not, especially a guy who is not super proven. And so I'll be interested to see how that kind of market value plays out, because I know that, as you guys know, there were some quarterbacks who hit the transfer portal. Think of a guy like Talia Tagovailoa. I think that was a big situation where he wanted to see how much am I worth in the portal. I think that may have, and that's pre-spring, so that this is not the greatest example, but I think that is sort of an example of maybe where the market is at right now, where even a guy like that you're not going to shell out a ridiculous amount of money for. He clearly thought it was in his better interest to go to the draft. I know there was the eligibility question with him as well, but I think that's kind of where these quarterbacks are at right now. I wonder how much right now. Maybe guys are a little bit overvalued. A guy like a Riley Leonard as well. Auburn was interested in him at the start. I think that they just didn't want to pay as much as he was asking.
Ben, any other thoughts as far as what we saw or maybe didn't see with the quarterback movement?
Well, you know me and how competitive I am, Jordan, to know that I think I got my answer in on the Riley Leonard question and before Bryce did. So, and we don't have to get into that. I wasn't going to bring it up, but I guess, if I feel like I have to, I might as well. I think that the big thing is especially post spring, you're not going to see a lot of movement, especially this year, because their interconference transfer rule really prohibited a lot of guys from going where their relationships were. I mean, I think more often than not, these transfer portal moves are happening before they get into the portal because they have relationships with people from their high school recruitments. And I think that a lot of that overlap is happening within the same conferences. There's obviously exceptions to that, like Caleb Downs having the relationships at Ohio State. And I know that was pre-spring as well in a slightly different situation. But, you look at guys that Georgia has lost to in the portal in the past. A lot of it has been, Texas. That's not an option anymore post-spring. And so I think that that's been a big reason why you're not seeing as much post-spring movement. And then I think with the quarterback position, most programs, if they feel they need to go get a quarterback, they're going to have identified that person after the 2023 season, go after them immediately after. There's a very rare case, and Georgia being one of them with Jaden Rashada, where you feel like you need to go get a quarterback in the post-spring portal, because most are going to go into spring with their quarterback situation mostly figured out, because you can't really afford to do anything other than that.
I'm going to blame a faulty buzzer there for you, Ben. I will say this, that I've made sure to kind of line up where I can see who has buzzed in where. It kind of all the little letters I'm seeing in the group chat, it's easy to get them mixed up, but we are ready to clean this thing up. Second category, moving on up. Now, these are going to be worth $200 a piece. And as I pointed out from the jump, if you buzz in and you are wrong, that means a $200 loss to your total. And before we start this category, I'll go through it again real quick. Nathan's got $300. He's in the lead. And Bryce and Ben both have $250 right there behind him. All right, the first question. Coastal Carolina quarterback Grayson McCall flirted with leaving the team after the 2022 season, then did so after 2023. Where did he end up? And it looks like Nathan is the first one in. Nathan, where is Grayson McCall?
I was really confident when I hit the button, and now I'm like, did he go to Liberty?
Incorrect. Oof, tough blow there for Nathan. All right, it looks like Bryce was the next one up. So Bryce, you're gonna have to unmute yourself there, but he is already doing the Lane Kiffin. I think if he had a clipboard, he'd have thrown that up in the air. He looks confident. Bryce, where is Grayson McCall?
He's going to be playing for Dave Doran and NC State this year.
The most excited anyone has ever been talking about Dave Doran is Bryce Koon. He gets $200 right there. Good work. And Grayson McCall, that was sort of the thought, Nathan. I saw where you were going with that. People thought he was going to go there last season once his head coach left Coastal. There were rumors about Auburn. There were rumors about Florida. Comes back and then decides to leave. And ACC bound. I'll be really interested to see what Grayson McCall does. All right, going on to the next question. Edge Trey Moore decided to move within the Lone Star State and go up the road to Texas. Which group of 5 school did he leave? Please, not everybody all at once. All right, it looks like that is Ben Wolk has got the answer. Let's see, Ben, if you'll unmute and tell us who you got.
Just a shot in the dark, UTSA.
Correct. And that was one of those fellas I tried to help you guys out with a hint in the question. But he goes up the road, the Road Runners, and he is now with the Longhorns. All right. Let's see, going on to the next question. With the Pac-12 collapsing, Oregon State running back Aiden Childs followed head coach Jonathan Smith to the Big Ten. Where did they go? And that looks like Nathan King has buzzed in. Nathan, where is Aiden Childs now?
He's at Michigan State, where he is rated extremely highly by 24/7, if I recall, despite not doing that much at Oregon State. So I don't actually know how good he is. This could also be completely wrong.
Hater. That was a hater answer right there. That was a hater answer.
It was.
It was a hater answer, but it was the correct answer. He is a Michigan State Spartan. And I do think, before we go on to this, guys, do you think we'll see more of this? There have been a few cases of this where guys have followed head coaches. And I'll start with you, Ben. Do you think we'll see more of this, of a situation like Aiden Childs saying, hey, I had success with Jonathan Smith, I'm just going to go with him? Do you think we'll see a lot of that in the portal going forward?
Well, no doubt, but I think that the biggest thing it tells you is how your head coach valued you at your previous school. I mean, I think you saw that with Kalen DeBoer going to Alabama, that he didn't bring everyone with him, but he certainly brought some guys with him. And I think, Aiden Childs is a great example. Austin Mack, I hope we're not spoiling future questions, but I thought that he was an interesting example that, he's not someone that I had really thought of when it came to Washington, but the fact that Kalen DeBoer wanted to bring him with him to Alabama tells me a lot about him as a player.
Nathan, any thoughts on seeing more of this, seeing guys follow head coaches?
Yeah, there are also, to completely not answer your question, there are also really interesting situations like the one with Salter at Liberty, where it's like they didn't, he was with Freeze, then ended up playing for Freeze, and then kind of didn't, and then a year went by and they didn't get him in the portal, and then later on, I think like Ben was saying, the ones that are a little bit more concrete definitely tell you what a coach thinks of that player. I think you are absolutely going to see more of this moving forward. It's never been easier. I mean, you've got the intra-conference, transfer rules that we discussed previously, but it's never been easier to understand where a coach is going and just say, hey, he's put me in positions to succeed, previously. But like Ben said, it is interesting sometimes to see, DeBoer, I think, was maybe a slight example of that. Coaches go places and there aren't a bunch of players that follow them. I don't think it's necessarily black or white, like, oh, well, his players must not like him. Like, not that, but it certainly is interesting because you definitely have some teams that are just wholesale, lots of guys in college basketball as well. I think it may be even more prominent that you see guys just follow a coach when they go somewhere.
Yeah, like Nathan said and like Ben hit on, I mean, it's so easy to move now with the unlimited transfers that it makes sense to see more of this going forward. Bryce, any additional thoughts on seeing these players follow coaches and if we'll see more of it going forward?
Yeah, just two-parter. I mean, obviously, look at the number 1 pick this past year's draft. I mean, Caleb Williams kind of set the tone for that when he followed Lincoln Riley, out west. And then I won't go too much more in the detail. I will say, though, Ben had an issue in round one. I've got an issue here in round two. Running back Aiden Childs threw me off completely. I know the guy's considered a dual threat quarterback, but he can throw the ball a little
Still
bit there,
issue.
Jordan. I mean, geez.
Typing was not my strong suit on that one. Hey, give me a break. Hey, we're working through. This is the pilot episode, and we'll take it up with the judges here in a little bit. All right, fellas, let's move on to the next category. Sorry, not the next category. The next question. Ivy League defensive lineman Joey Slackman is headed to the SEC as a Florida Gator. Which school did he leave? And it looks like Nathan King has buzzed in. Nathan, where is Joey Slackman coming from?
I think I only know this because Auburn wanted to get him on campus for a visit. They did not because he committed to Florida. I believe he is from Penn.
That is correct. Pin to win. You've got that one, $200. Not a ton of Ivy League guys looking through the portal, especially jumping to the SEC. But that is definitely somebody. And like you said, Nathan, I think that Auburn was in the mix there. And then he decides to go to Gainesville instead. All right, guys, we have got another bonus question coming up. So get ready to text me your answers. And let's get into this question now. Give me the 4 SEC schools that added the most transfers from the Group of 5 and the FCS. Again, doesn't have to be in order. You get 50 points per correct answer. So we'll sit here for a few seconds of silence. May throw in the Jeopardy music in post-production, but think a little bit on it, and then we'll see what you guys got. So the correct answers are South Carolina with 9, Arkansas with 8, Oklahoma 7, Texas A&M with 7. So let's see what everybody said. Let's see. Ben got one of the answers. He had Arkansas, but he also said Florida, Mississippi State, and Missouri. So he gets 50 points there. Let's go ahead and add that to the total for $500. Nathan got 2, so that's $100 for Nathan, up to $600. Nathan had Florida, LSU, South Carolina, and Arkansas, and the Gamecocks and the Razorbacks were 2 of the correct answers. Bryce also got 2. He had Arkansas and he had Oklahoma. I thought some of you guys may slip up a little bit with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, but
Yeah,
Bryce
some of us did. Some of us did.
Some of us did do
That's
that.
what I heard.
All right, but Bryce
I knew
gets
Arkansas
100.
would be on there because that's probably the only guys that Pittman could get this offseason.
That's sort of the nature of what we're looking at now, is that if it's looking bleak, even with that Ivy League defensive lineman we were just talking about, I mean, I don't know if a ton of guys are wanting to go to Florida right now, given that situation. All right, as we get ready to go into the next category, we have got Nathan in the lead with $600. We got Bryce right behind him with $550. And we've got Ben with $500. You guys are doing really good. I am impressed with how you guys are holding up. It is about to get a little bit harder, but I think you guys are holding up pretty well. All right, we are going on to the next category, another fresh start. So this is going to be guys who have transferred multiple times. The first question, this category, the questions within it are worth $300 a piece. And the very first question, Robbie Ashford began his career at Oregon before spending 2 seasons at Auburn. Where is Robbie Ashford now? Nathan, the resident Auburn expert, buzzed in first. Nathan, where is Robbie Ashford?
Robbie Ashford is at South Carolina, where he has been named not the starting quarterback, and the guy who I can't remember the guy's name, but he wears goggles, which I think is awesome. Robbie's
Sellers.
a great athlete. I'm excited to. What did you say? So, what was his name, Bryce? Sorry,
Lenore Sellers.
Just incredible, absolutely incredible. Yeah, I'm interested to see how Robbie does. I think he's got a lot of issues throwing the ball, but in the right system, I mean, he's an incredible athlete.
Good job. Nailed the question with Robbie Ashford going to the Gamecocks. All right, next question. Speaking of South Carolina, Juice Wells spent 2 seasons there after playing at James Madison. Which SEC school did he transfer to this offseason? And it looks like Bryce. Shake a head no if I'm missing who got that. It looks like it was Bryce. Bryce, where is Juice Wells now?
I just had to get this in because Ben's going to be answering every single one, at least putting his name in the hat. Ole Miss, am I right in that?
You are correct. It is the Ole Miss Rebels. Sorry, bouncing back and forth between the chat, between the numbers. We are making our money count today. But Bryce was correct. Juice Wells is going to Ole Miss. All right, we are going on to the next question. Offensive tackle Caden Proctor briefly left Alabama before returning to the Crimson Tide. Which school did he spend the spring with? And it looks like it was Nathan that got the question in first. Nathan, where is Caden Proctor coming from in order to go back to Alabama?
I do not appreciate the tone of surprise when you saw that I got it, but it is Iowa.
Iowa is correct, and I did not accidentally mute myself right there. I was adding up the totals, and boys, y'all are going to have to do a little bit of work to catch up with Nathan. Ben, any thoughts? Is this rigged? Are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I have felt like I've had the odds stacked against me from the very first round, but like you said, it's a pilot episode, so hopefully we've got hundreds of these, and I'll have plenty of opportunities to correct this.
I'm really coming in with the big brain knowledge, small guys like Caleb Downs and Caden Proctor, It's tough.
I will say Auburn's a little more active in the transfer portal these days, so I feel like Nathan's got a little bit of an advantage there.
That's a good excuse. I like that.
All right, next question. Cam Ward seemed NFL bound after his run at Washington State, but he transferred to Miami instead. Which FCS team in Texas did Ward burst onto the scene with in 2021? Ben, you buzzed in first. Where was Cam Ward when he really came onto the scene in college football?
Yeah, I might have jumped the gun on that one.
No answer?
No answer.
Probably smart. Didn't cost you any money there, so I think that was a good strategy. All right, Nathan, if you will unmute and tell us where Cam Ward first burst onto the scene in the state of Texas.
Oh my gosh, Incarnate Word.
Correct, Incarnate Word.
Home of the Auburn legend, Zach Calzada.
Absolutely.
Also, former Auburn legend Cam Martin got his coaching.
That's right. The most important Cam involved with this question is Cam Martin.
No doubt about it. All right. Yeah, there's no doubt. All right. Going to the bonus question for this round. Again, reminding everyone who's listening, everyone who's watching this, that there are multiple answers, and I'm fascinated to see if you guys get this one because I was proud of this one when I came up with it. Quarterback Casey Thompson is preparing to play for his 4th team in 7 years. Give me each of the 4 teams. You get 50 points apiece for each correct team you choose. Good news, fellas. Everybody got this question correct. Good work. Looking at Casey Thompson, it was Texas, it was Nebraska, it was a reunion with his head coach Tom Herman down at Florida Atlantic, and then it was a move to Oklahoma. So everybody made 200 points with that. And let me get those numbers added up real quick. All right, we are going into the final round of questions. And a reminder, too, that we will have one final question outside of this category. So there's still an opportunity to make up some points. Nathan is leading the way with $1,400. We have got Bryce Koon coming up in second with 1,050. And then we've got Ben Wolk, who's got a little bit of work to do there at 700. And before we go on to this category, if you guys noticed, I don't think it was a surprise that a lot of these situations where we're talking about guys moving multiple times were quarterbacks. Do you see an issue with that at all? Especially, with some of these guys like a Casey Thompson, they've got that COVID year of eligibility that's allowed them to keep playing. I'm going to start with you, Bryce, and I'll go ahead and unmute you. What do you think about the fact we see quarterbacks move so much, and especially what it can mean in an era like we were talking about a little bit earlier, where you have unlimited transfers? These guys can continue to move around, and necessarily we won't see maybe quite as much because that COVID year is almost up. Most of those guys are done with playing college football. But the fact that we can see quarterbacks move as much as they can in the current era of college football.
Yeah, I'll take it twofold here. I mean, one, I know a lot of people don't consider them very much when all this college football conversations have, but from a fan perspective, I mean, quarterback's typically your biggest brand, your biggest your biggest recognizable face. And so for fans, I mean, for the non-diehard fans, it kind of creates a sense of a lack of attachment. I mean, I think everyone can kind of be attached to the guy, the signal caller, and stuff like that. So that lack of continuity for a fan obviously hurts. But staying with the continuity, I think it just hurts offensive development as a whole. I mean, we talk so much, and I think Nathan mentioned it, when quarterbacks do transfer into summer, I mean, the clock is ticking in terms of the reps and things that you can do with your team. So I think just for offenses to be able to develop, especially programs that are not plug and play programs, your Georgias, your Ohio States, like programs where you can feel like you can just drop in a guy and it can continue to develop. If you're a bottom half SEC program, a Big 12 program, an ACC school, bottom half Big 10, where, year to year development of your entire cohesive 11-man offensive unit is so important, having a new guy, every 2-3 years, or every, a new guy each of those years, it just kind of feels like we're seeing development not be taken as seriously anymore. And so I hate that in the sense of, I think it's going to be really harder for that middle class of college football programs to have any type of sustainability for a decent amount of time. Like those long, bold, streak wins or bowl streaks that they're getting to, it's going to be, I think, kind of hard to replicate that of what we saw kind of over the past, 15, 20 years.
Ben, I'm going to ask you and sort of reword this question, but it hits on a point that Bryce was just making there. As a college football fan, does it concern you how much you see quarterbacks move around? We know that guys, when they come to a school, the chances are maybe they don't stay there all 3 or 4 years. The fact that quarterbacks move like they do, does it hurt the product for you as a college football fan? The fact that you can't really attach yourself to a quarterback over the course of their career?
I mean, it might hurt the product. I don't view it that way because I think quarterbacks don't have much of another choice. I mean, there's a reason why quarterbacks are moving the way that they are, and it's because they have such a finite amount of time to go be NFL draft picks, and only one quarterback for the most part is playing for good football teams on a yearly basis. And so they have no choice but to try and find their opportunity. Now, it does muddy the waters a little bit when we're having playing a game like this, and you might forget where a guy ended up going or where he took, steps along the way. But I think we just showed right there, a guy like Casey Thompson, everyone kind of followed him along the way because of what his profile was coming out of high school and how he performed early on in his career and at various stops. Like, I think he's just one of those guys that you pay attention to. And so I think that he's a great example of, if you're a quarterback, you got to try, and even if it means going to 4 schools in 7 years, I mean, you got to find your spot and hope, because there's not many quarterbacks out there that have a lot of success and have, end up having opportunities at the next level.
Nathan, what about you? Just the thoughts on how we see these quarterbacks move around, and if you feel like that hurts things, or just sort of the nature of what this position is in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, both the guys kind of touched on, I think, everything here, but I agree with Ben. I think that it doesn't, for me personally, it makes sense, and the product I don't think is damaged that much. From a quarterback perspective, I will say, though, to Bryce's point, it's hard to feel for coaches because they get paid millions of dollars. But like, it's to the development part, you used to, if you're a guy like a Hugh Freeze, to kind of touch on what I'm close to, like, that's sort of part of your cachet as a coach is like, oh, I've done a good job developing quarterbacks over the years. I've done a good job putting them in positions to succeed. Now, if you're him and his staff, you're sort of wondering, does that avenue even exist on a consistent basis anymore? Now Auburn's actually kept their room intact, and they've got a bunch of young guys who have decided to stick around. And so I think if you're a coach, that's probably where you want to lean. At the same time, you look at, this is a past year example, but what Lane Kiffin did last year in terms of his quarterback room at Ole Miss. He was like, all right, guys, one of you is going to be the best. I'm going to bring in 3 or 4 starting caliber quarterbacks. Have at it. And so, there's 2 different sides of the pendulum there. I think probably the smartest way to fall is right there in the middle. I think moving forward, we're still going to continue to get this, but I agree with what a lot of Bryce said that, quarterback development I think is so important. But at the same time, it's hard to get developed that much when you're the number 3 guy in practice and you're getting reps against, walk-on defensive backs. Like it is such a touchy position, and it is kind of the most volatile position in the transfer portal if you're a quarterback, because it is, like Ben said, it is so important what you decide to do, because you ain't gonna get that many reps like players on defense might get, or receivers or offensive linemen.
Bryce,
If I may add,
yeah.
Just for any LSU fans watching, we've talked about this on our message board. Like it's why, and I hinted at it earlier when we opened the show. Like LSU's in such an envious position to a lot of other schools because you've had a guy in Garrett Nussmeier. Yeah, he hasn't played a ton of legitimate snaps outside of here or there, the bowl game, SEC title game a couple of years ago, but he's been in the system. This is his 4th year in the system, so it's not something that you really see. It's rare. And so we've talked with Nussmeier, we've talked with offensive coordinator and quarterback coach Joe Sloan about that. And, the coaching staff, I can tell you, and LSU fans know this, they feel pretty, pretty safe in the arms of a guy that, knows their system, knows what they want to do, because they look around the college football world and, like this thing that's, this graphic that's right here on the screen right now. It's a rarefied position to be in. And so when you can find yourself in that, you really do kind of hold on to that. It's pretty crazy that we're talking about that being so rare nowadays.
Absolutely. All right, we're moving on to the last category, big fish, smaller pond. These are going to be worth $400 a piece. And man, I'm really excited to read this first question. Despite not playing much at Oklahoma, quarterback General Booty became a fan favorite. Which Sun Belt team did General Booty transfer to? All right, Nathan, you were the first to buzz in. Where is General Booty now?
So excited that Mr. Booty will be on Auburn's schedule this year. He is heading to the ULM Warhawks.
Correct. Great work for a great quarterback that everybody is going to be pulling for sure. Going on to the next question. Memphis brought in the top portal class among Group of 5 schools, thanks in part to landing linebacker Elijah Herring. Which SEC school did Elijah Herring leave? Ben, you buzzed in. Where is Elijah Herring going from to go play for the Memphis Tigers?
Not 100% sure on this, but Tennessee?
That is correct. And even if that was just a guess, good thinking with the in-state transfer. Elijah Herring going to Memphis. A big one for Ben as he is up to $1,100 trying to catch up in this final category. All right, going to the next question. Former 5-star quarterback Malachi Nelson must have been feeling blue when he left USC after 1 season. Which Mountain West school is he at now? And it looks like Nathan was the one who buzzed in. Nathan, where is Malachi Nelson?
He is at Boise State, where I'm sure all of us are excited to play on that field this summer in the EA 25 game. I know that I am. I'm interested to see what that's going to look like. Yeah, he's going to Boise State to play for not Brian Harsin.
That is correct. And Nathan, do you see how I subtly worked that in there? Must have been feeling blue. I mean, I feel like
didn't, because as soon as I saw Malachi Nelson's name, I just hit the thing. These guys are too cutthroat. If you read too far, you're already done for.
Everybody's a critic. All right, going on to the next question. We are going to look at former Troy head coach John Summerall is starting over in the AAC, and one of his portal additions was LSU receiver Kenai Preen. Which school is Summerall and Preen at now? And no surprise here to see Bryce has buzzed in. Bryce, where are both of these guys going in 2024?
Yeah, as a resident of the state of Louisiana and a former Troy grad of the master's program. Shout out the Trojans. John Summerall and Kai Preen, they're headed to Tulane, the Green Wave, which is a lot of people are excited to see what he can do there this year.
Another example there of a guy transferring within the same state. And let's talk about this a little bit before we wind up finishing and going on to the bonus question. To me, this seems like such a natural move for a guy like Elijah Herring, like a guy like Kanai Preen. You move down a level, maybe you didn't play up to play the role that you thought you would at your former team, but you get a chance to stay in state. You get a chance to prove yourself, and we see plenty of group of five guys get an opportunity to play at the next level when they break out. Bryce, do you think that this is something that we'll see more of and see more instances of guys going down a level, maybe staying fairly locally and trying to prove themselves with a new team?
Yeah, and, specifically with Kai Preen, I mean, he was a name that we watched last season and just kind of fell behind. We mentioned earlier 2 first-round draft picks and kind of fell down the pecking order. And so, obviously, an uber talented kid you mentioned gets to stay local, head down, an hour to New Orleans from Baton Rouge. And so, I think we're going to see a lot of this, especially. And LSU does a good job of this in terms of keeping kids in state. Like you see a lot of, I don't know the percentage. I'm sure there's some work done by our national team or other people as well. But the percentage of kids that when they transfer, they want to transfer back close to home because that's a big part of it. And so, I think it's a trend that we're going to continue to see. And, for Kai Preen, for Elijah Herring, I mean, look, you spend 1 year there, whether it's at a Memphis, at Tulane, who are obviously, super respectable AAC programs. You go there and then maybe you ball out for 1 year and you're right back up, in the ranks of the Power Four, whether the SEC or Big Ten.
Ben, what about you? Just seeing guys make a move like that and understanding that, obviously levels like the SEC and the Big Ten, those are the places that so many people watch for top talent. But, knowing you can have a second opportunity and go to a school like Tulane and wind up showing that you're a top tier player there.
Well, I think it goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier too with the quarterbacks or not just the quarterbacks, just when head coaches move from school to school is you're going where you have relationships. Like the reason why there wasn't a lot of in-conference transfers, there weren't a lot of relationships. Well, if you go to LSU at some point and, I won't bring up the fact that we asked an LSU question with Bryce on here. I'm not going to bring that up either, but the fact that you go to LSU, you obviously are going to have relationships at Tulane as well. And so when they start to have success, it does create some of these sort of trickle down opportunities. And I think it's what's maybe one of the more fascinating elements of the transfer portal to me is that is where Group of Five, FCS, Division II coaches, that's where they're putting all of their efforts now. They are really not embracing the high school market at all. I mean, when you go out to these high schools, for the class of 2025, you're not seeing very many Group of Five. You might see a Group of Five here or there, but FCS, Division II, basically non-existent. And I think that you're really seeing that trickle-down effect where there is more film out there. There's more proof of concept out there for these Power Five players that maybe weren't able to make their home at their original spots, but they still have a lot of game and a lot of proof out there in their film. So I think that you're just going to see this more and more because it's easier for coaches to entertain the transfer portal market than it is to go and find high school players to develop.
Ben said, and another thing, I'm not mad. Please don't put in the paper that I got mad. Nathan, any thoughts just seeing guys drop down a level, maybe stay local and still trying to make their mark as a college football player?
I think fans in general like these kinds of stories, especially if you're a fan of that G5 team. When it's a sensible one like this, you see that a lot. People wanting to stay closer to home. I think that just a couple weeks ago, Hugh Freeze said that, and this kind of goes with what Ben was saying, but like in-state recruiting now might be more important than ever because what happens in 2 years when that guy who was a high 4-star in Alabama is homesick and he lives an hour and a half from your campus, but you recruited him really highly out of high school. He really, really liked what you had. Now he's looking to get closer to home. And so the game within the game is it has been happening for the last few years in college football. What Ben was talking about too does, it's a little disappointing. Like Ben said, that these schools have to go so heavy in the transfer portal. because it also sucks on the other end of things because they are the ones getting rated the most in the transfer portal. But I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit more on the realignment show. But moving forward, if there is another avenue for the group of five, if they have their own playoff, if in 15 years we get to a situation where their structure looks different, hopefully we're all still playing the same sport under the same umbrella, but you never know. I don't know, that kind of thing is interesting to me too. Like, is there going to be a different type of avenue for those teams in the recruiting space and in the transfer space? Because like Ben says, there kind of already is that they're kind of already setting that up right now.
Yeah, and I wanted to add to that real quick. I mean, I think that's why you're going to see some G5 programs become, if it stays in the same model, elite feeder programs. I mean, I think that's what we're going to see. And I know, obviously, Jordan and Benjamin, you guys are in tune with this, and Nathan too. But being a guy that's from Georgia originally, that's like my potential of what I see of Dell McGee doing at Georgia State, like turning that into a program in a state that is so dense with talent, to where, hey, you come here, we're going to get you to where you want to go. We would love for you to be here for 3 to 4 years, but if you want to get here and you want to go play at Tennessee, or you want to go be, the next receiver at Texas, a guy that I covered in high school that did exactly just what he did, Jamari Thrash, heard his name called in the draft this past year, when went there and then went to Louisville and was really, really great up there. So yeah, I think you're going to see elite feeder programs. And in two, a common theme that I'm going to watch is where they're located. Georgia State in Atlanta, Tulane in New Orleans, another talent-rich state. Like, if you have a good destination as a G5 program, you might be able to kind of have a leg up on some other G5 programs too.
No doubt about that. All right, we got 2 questions left, and the next one is the bonus question for the 4th category. There are 5 group of 5 teams that are in the top 60 in the 24 Sports Portal team rankings. Name all 5, and you get 50 points for each correct answer. We'll give these guys a few minutes to put their answers in, and we will see what they get.
While Jordan's tallying this, I'd also like to add, Ben, I stand with you on the stance that Nathan's obviously been sandbagging this entire time. So just wanted to throw that out there for future shows and future references.
Yep, I would agree. And he's very quick on the thumb. So,
I think he's got 2 keyboards. I don't know. I'm not going to accuse, but I think he's got multiple keyboards.
I would agree.
I'm just wondering what 2 keyboards would do in this situation.
I don't know. I'm just trying to say things to maybe incriminate you somehow. But
it doesn't help my case that in questions like these, I'm only able to give 3 of 5 answers. So that doesn't that I couldn't even get to 5 smart choices was a problem for me.
All right,
all the lose points, do we, Jordan?
Not on the bonus ones.
Okay.
Not on the bonus ones.
Gosh, I was about to do the iOS unsend.
No, but you guys fared pretty well. Everybody got at least 2, and Bryce led the way with 3. So the correct answers to this question, there are 5 group of 5 teams that are in the top 60 in the 24 Sports Portal team rankings. Those 5: Memphis, Tulane, Texas State, UNLV, and San Diego State. So Bryce had 3, and I believe that Nathan and Ben each had 2. Bryce, you got a question there?
I sent Memphis, Tulane, UNLV, East Carolina, Texas State. That's 4, right?
Let's see. That is 4. Math is not my strong suit. That's why I went to the University of Georgia.
Obviously paid Jordan prior to this. This is
was that text edited?
Under
it shows you, Jordan. It shows you under the text if it says it was edited.
Oh, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Huh. Got you right here. Delivered. Just straight delivered.
There you go.
We're gonna hire a intern, and they're just gonna read these answers to me because the math and the reading of the text, it's a lot. Let me tell you. Just wait, Nathan and Bryce.
You're doing good. I've been thinking
doing very well.
How terrible I'm going to be at this.
I'm thinking that I hope my child's born before I have to do my episode, so I can have that. That's what I'm hoping.
All right, guys. Before we take this last question, I am going to read off the point totals. Nathan is in first with 2,300. Bryce, who correctly pointed out that he had 4 of those correct answers, he's up to 1,650. He's in second, and Ben is in third with 1,200. Now, this is going to be the final category, the final question. I will give you the category. And the final round is the big picture. So think big, think macro with college football. What I want each of you to do, you know your point totals. I'll read them again. Nathan, you have 2,300. Bryce, you have 1,650. And Ben, you have 1,200. You need to text me what you're willing to put down for this final category. And then we will read the question and you guys can each send me your answers.
I have a clarification question for you, Jordan.
Yes, go ahead, Nathan.
This is a standard last question. Lose exactly what you wager, gain exactly what you wager, correct?
You are correct.
Yep. Okay.
All right. All of our wagers are in. So we are going to look at this question and then each of you guys will text me your answers and we'll go through and see how everybody did. According to 24/7 Sports portal rankings, there are 4 schools that added more than 27 players from the portal this offseason. Name those 4 schools. And with this one, if we wind up getting where not one person got all 4, whoever gets the most of the 4 will be the winner. All right, fellas, we have a winner. I have totaled up the points, and for that last question, all right, according to 24/7 Sports portal rankings, there are 4 schools that added more than 27 players from the portal this offseason. Name those schools. Those schools were Colorado with 40, Louisville with 31, Arizona State with 29, Indiana with 29. So one player got 3 of the 4. Ben was not that player, so he ends up with 0. He wagered 1,200. Nathan gets 2 of the 3 correct. He wagered 0, tried to hold tight. And Bryce Koon got 3 of the 4, and he wagered 975. And that makes Bryce Koon the winner of the inaugural college football IQ episode. He ends with 2,575. Nathan had 2,300 and Ben had 0. Bryce, unmute. Congratulations. What do you think of your performance and your fellow players' performance?
Yeah, I mean that last question that was tough. I tried to go the route of new coaches and then coaches that do a lot. So man, but hey, this was a lot of fun. I was a little wary. Ben, I did technically. I don't feel like I cheated Ben on an answer. He definitely got that one in the first round, but it is what it is. That's no hard feelings towards Ben. And hopefully no hard feelings towards me. Nathan sandbagged, and so that was obviously. I mean, that's a recurring theme of today's show.
Can we get a little more clarification on that?
I would say, you talked like, I think in the beginning, we opened the show and Jordan goes, and Nathan's already in distress, something along the lines of that. And Nathan proceeds to just have the quickest finger I've ever seen on a keyboard in my life. I think there might have been some pre-snap movement, maybe with getting a couple of those there, but no, this was a lot of fun. And I've got a lot of work to do for, as Nathan and I both do, to really prep for what we're going to do, because this is a lot of fun. This is going to be a ton of fun for fans and for people to watch and take part in.
That was a good format, I thought, Jordan, of that last question, because if I had known beforehand how that was going to work out, of like, oh, if you get this many, but that'd be too easy, because then it'd be from a wagering perspective. So it needed to be. That's why I went safe. But if I had known, like, oh, you get a certain amount, I would have gone a little bit more. So no, I agree with Bryce. I'm excited / dreading putting mine together because I know it's not going to be as good as Jordan's. But yeah, this was awesome.
Bryce, you pointed out a little bit of controversy. That it wouldn't be a college football game without controversy. Ben, I know you've got a dip here in a second, but valiant effort. Any parting thoughts?
No, I mean, no, Bryce, no hard feelings. I mean, Jordan knows me well enough to know that I was very likely to come in last place. And if I came in last place, I was 100% going to have a few different excuses lined up just in case. So I had Nathan, Auburn's involvement in the transfer portal. I had the sort of rigged question in round 1 where I didn't get to answer the Riley Leonard Notre Dame question. So it's really more of just an out for me to not feel like I lost when I obviously did.
Yeah.
Nathan, thought?
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quickly, because I don't know. We were recording this, and I have no idea when it's going to come out. But on the transfer subject, I was kind of just thinking about it a couple of times during the show. We do not know the current condition of Auburn running back Brian Battie, former transfer from USF who has been in the intensive care after a shooting, as we're recording this last Saturday in Sarasota. Hugh Freeze tweeted yesterday, that being May 20th, that there was a bit of a setback, and he is currently on a ventilator. The reason I bring that up is obviously we are praying for the best in that situation. It's absolutely horrendous. His brother has already been killed. And so obviously praying for that family. But I just wanted to say that I probably should have said that a little closer to the start, just because we dive into a bunch of transfer stuff. So no idea when this will be posted, no idea what his status will be at that time, but that's something we're all definitely thinking about.
Absolutely. Thoughts and prayers for that family. That is a very tough situation. Any parting thoughts before we wrap this up, guys?
No, I think this thing's got a bright future. I think that once, we'll have various wrinkles to this one along the way, but I think college football IQ's got a lot of episodes in it.
Yeah, I think we're gonna hammer out the wrinkles as we go, like Benjamin said, and I'm ready for our network television debut at least by next year. That's what I'm. I think this is you look at the different game shows that ESPN was littered with for so many years. I think this is up there with what we could do. So.
Yeah, I was very tempted to, go suit and maybe one of those long mics, you saw like on the Match Game and stuff like that. Maybe that's episode 2. Nathan or Bryce can pick
Now
up that
there's
Tuxedo T-shirt. I mean, whatever we prefer. Yeah.
We're going to wrap it up right there. I appreciate everyone for watching and listening, and everyone listening to the Junkyard Dawgcast, Go 24/7, or Auburn Undercovers podcast. We appreciate you guys. Appreciate Nathan and Bryce and Ben for hanging out for this episode. And keep an eye out. We'll have another episode of College Football IQ here really, really soon.